We are excited to continue to hear voices from around the region, around the country, representing different regions and representing different aspects of the work that is underway. So next, we know that everyone could not be here, unfortunately, in Wichita. So we are going to transition to a virtual panel. So this will all be on Zoom on the screens. And as we do that, to hear from people who are participating in programs, Build Back Better programs from across the country. So to get us started on that, I want to introduce you all to Jess Wilkinson, as I mentioned, has been working on this 2-hour celebration moment for several months. And so want to turn it over to you to get us going on this panel.
Thanks, Sarah. I really don't have much to add except that was fantastic. I'm so excited to be here and to be here with you all and to be celebrating. I'm just going to pass it on to Ryan Zamarripa, who is the program manager for the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. We've got our panelists on the line. You can see them on the 2 screens, and just for the folks who are on the screen who probably can't see the room, you've got a room full of program managers and RICOs and folks from EDA who are really excited to hear from y'all's experiences and how this program has shaped and transformed your regions and your communities and lives. So with that, Ryan, I will pass it to you.
Thank you for that, Jess. Am I coming in okay? I guess.
Yes.
I can't see anyone nodding, so that wasn't a good question. Well, good morning, everyone. As Jess said, my name is Ryan Zamarripa, and I am a program manager for the Build Back Better Regional Challenge here at the Economic Development Administration. And a big thanks to everyone who's in Wichita for joining us and for everyone who is on the line joining us virtually. So when people ask me what I like about working here at EDA, I mention pretty much every time how great it is to be able to get out into the communities and meet the people whose lives are impacted through the projects that we fund. In Washington, we can oftentimes become very obsessed with data and figures, that we forget that there are families and communities behind every statistic that we publish. So it's within this context that we wanted to host this panel and speak with folks across the country who are building back better, and just show how impactful these projects can be. So with that, I'd like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves, let us know where they're calling in from, which coalition they've been working with, and how they first became connected to the Build Back Better programming. So let's start with Heidi.
My name is Heidi Cuny. I am the co-owner of a new venture called Badlands Heritage Guest Ranch. We are a regenerative agricultural operation that also offers guests from around the world to stay at our ranch and learn about agriculture. And we're located right outside the Badlands in South Dakota. So there are plenty of other attractions for guests to enjoy too while they're staying at our place. We were able to recently purchase this business just actually a little less than a year ago through a loan we received from the Mountain Plains Regional Native CDFI Coalition's Revolving Loan Fund. That group was a recipient of a Build Back Better award a couple of years ago.
Excellent. Thank you, Heidi. Robert, you're up next.
Hi, thank you. I'm Robert Cowie. I'm a city council member for City of Chiloquin, which is a small rural town in South Central Oregon. We have a population of 800, which is very common for what we consider small cities in Oregon. We received a technical assistance grant from Oregon's Department of Land Conservation and Development through the CODA program, which was to help address the housing needs by helping cities like ours redo their housing codes and ordinances in order to bring in other types of homes, such as like tiny homes and things like that, which currently are not allowed under our ordinances. So this was something that was awarded to 10 different cities in Oregon. And then out of this will also be a model code that can be used for other cities across the state.
Excellent. Thank you, Robert. Dale?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dale Miller. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of SkyWater, Florida. And our engagement is the Central Florida Semiconductor Cluster as part of the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. And our company is a semiconductor company, and we're benefiting from 3 of the EDA grant projects. And those are the Center for Innovation Expansion, advanced packaging tools, digital twin of the facility. There's also a heavy workforce development part of it, which is upskill Osceola, Catalyst Osceola, and the government community engagement aspect of it. And our company is the recipient of some of that benefit and focus on driving technology jobs in Osceola County, in the city of Kissimmee, in Central Florida.
Excellent. Thank you, Dale. And last but not least, Ashley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Cain, and I currently serve as an assistant crew chief here at Coalfield Development. I had the opportunity to engage with the Act Now Coalition, which was an initiative associated with the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. This program provided me valuable on-the-job training in carpentry and construction, which significantly contributed to my advancement to the position of an assistant crew chief. That's kind of what Coalfield their drive is to provide employees with paid on-the-job training.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. So I'd like to open up with just a simple question, and that is, how has the Build Back Better Regional Challenge and the projects undertaken by the coalitions that you all just mentioned had an impact on you, your families, your businesses, or your communities? And I think we will start with Heidi for this one.
Sure. So I think we wouldn't be where we are today without having access to patient and flexible capital through native CDFIs. It's had a huge impact on our family. We are a family-run business. I would say, you know, for us, it allowed us to kind of carry out a dream. We had an idea, and the native CDFIs we worked with that are managing the revolving loan fund really kind of got behind us and believed in our idea and our dream just as much as we did. And that has made all the difference in the world. We've gotten to do something that we wanted to do for a couple of years, but didn't have the resources to really make it happen. And in the process, we've been able to move back to the area where my husband's originally from. We live on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And we're hoping also that, you know, just being here and having a business in this area will have, you know, greater impacts on the community as well.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Thank you, Heidi. Dale, do you want to jump in? How has this impacted you?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the Central Florida Coalition Cluster is made up of 6 focus areas, and 3 of those focus areas are directly influencing our business. We are the operator of the Center for Innovation within Kissimmee, Florida, and one of the key projects is to finish the facilitization of that facility such that we can bring it to its full capability, in addition to some additional tools that will allow us to provide technology solutions within our industry. And then the aspect of that will drive additional technology jobs within Central Florida. And what's been very beneficial to us is that in addition to the EDA focus on bringing this capability to bear in Central Florida, it is also focused on workforce development and creating the skills and giving people the opportunity to change their career path should they choose to do so, and have an opportunity to maybe get a higher paying technology job through that skill transformation. So those are the key aspects that we've been benefiting from.
Excellent. Robert, can you speak a little bit to how the CODA project is changing your community?
Yeah, absolutely. So housing across Oregon, as I'm sure it is many places in the country, is a huge challenge. Not enough homes, prices going up because of that fact. So we were starting to receive a lot of requests from citizens who were wanting to do things like tiny homes or other types of residential construction that wasn't currently allowed. And we're a very small town. We have only 2.5 employees in our city admin. So this is a monumental task for us to go through our code, which a lot of it is literally notes on paper of changes that had occurred over the years. So just going through and taking all that and doing all the research was something that would have just taken years for us to do, or to go out and hire someone. We just didn't have the funds to do that. So the Code Up was actually part of a much larger program that the state was using money from the government for, federal government for, in the mass timber. Our governor's office realized that across the state, they needed to address this as a whole problem. So looking at building materials such as the mass timber, things that would be low cost, easy to use, and fire resistant, which is really important in the state. But then also recognizing that so many of the small towns like ours didn't have the ability to easily, quickly go through and do their code. So this allowed, once we applied and received this technical assistance, what happened was the DLCD group brought in some outside consultants that worked with each of the 10 cities like ours, going through all of their code, figuring out what needed to be done, and then coming back to the cities with the recommendations and changes. And then, as I mentioned earlier, out of this will also come a model code that the other cities across the state will also be able to look at and adopt or utilize in changing their code. So this has allowed us to move very quickly in doing work we needed to do to help with the housing shortage in our area.
Great, thank you, Robert. And Ashley, I'd love to hear about your journey with Act Now.
So throughout my duration at Coalfield Development, the benefits from the Act Now Coalition, I've significantly advanced my skills and knowledge. It includes proficiency in blueprint reading and drafting, framing, layout, interpretation, proper tool handling, door fixture and hardware installation, concrete finishing, drywall installation, and there's so many more that I could name. Those are mainly the most key points. Additionally, I've also engaged in leadership training. I am currently a board member for a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising funds for Ukrainian refugees. And all these experiences reflect the comprehensive exposure that I've had and received as an employee here at Coalfield Development. Now in this role as an assistant crew chief, I'm responsible for guiding and instructing others within a construction setting, which positively impacts both their professional growth and the community.
That's great to hear. Thank you all. I'd like to allow any of you to jump in for this next one. So are there any differences in how the coalitions have approached economic development in your communities compared to prior initiatives that you can think of? And has anything that they've done stood out to you as unique or innovative? And I'm happy to call on. Yeah, Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment on, I think one of the benefits and the power of this grant has been the coalition aspect of the grant itself, bringing various talents and knowledge to the table, and the willingness to work together to solve problems is very powerful. And it's definitely been represented in the build back of the Semiconductor one in Central Florida. We've seen that across many different ways. So one of them has been to understand the ecosystem of the technologies in Central Florida and how they can partner better going forward. That obviously has ramifications to workforce development and job growth as you do that, and how you can support one another. Then the whole workforce development aspect is how do you create programs starting from high school all the way through universities and certificate programs, so that people have the opportunity to reskill and fill the jobs and openings that these companies are going to have. So that's a major one that I would highlight.
Heidi, yeah.
Sure. So I'd say the thing that I see that was unique about this opportunity is that the Build Back Better challenge really provided groups, coalitions such as the Mountain Plains Coalition, to really come together and formulate their own solutions. These are, people working in their communities, understanding the unique differences within Native communities, and really understanding what they need themselves to create opportunity for their community members. And so instead of being a prescribed approach of saying, okay, you can use this money for, this one thing, this was an opportunity where they got to come together and formulate their own best solutions. And, they're the ones living and working in the community, and they know what their community needs better than anyone else.
Yeah, Robert.
I definitely would echo what Heidi and Dale said. In addition with that, I would say the speed was very helpful for us. As I mentioned, we would have taken years to do this by ourselves, and within 1 year, this will all be done. And to me, in the short time I've been in the government world, coming from corporate world, this is very unique. I mean, I'm used to corporate where you make a decision, you got the money, and boom, you go. Government, I've typically seen things take 2, 3, 4 years, in some cases even longer. And this was phenomenal of how quick it happened and occurred. And we're almost done with it, and it's exciting. And that's also one of the things I keep seeing as we work for grants at both state and federal level, is that the process is starting to become easier and easier, which is definitely needed. When you're talking about a small rural town like ours, we don't have the resources. And in fact, a lot of times it's volunteers who are stepping up to try to understand the language around a grant, figure out how it can actually be used for the community, and then putting that together, that application. So the more that things like this program can be expanded, make things simple and easy and more readily available. And as Heidi was mentioning, really allowing the local communities who know what they need to be able to achieve it.
Excellent, thank you. Ashley, did you want to jump in?
Yes. So the experiences and opportunities afforded by these programs, they've really offered diverse perspectives, and they are very nurturing for personal and professional development. And that's one thing that Coalfield Development really strives for. We hire a lot of people with barriers to their employment, whether it is previous coal miners, recovering drug addicts, people with a criminal background. And we try to train them and get them to further their education to where when they leave here, they are able to find better employment. So this has allowed us to expand our company, and we are able to hire a lot more individuals to help them go through this program.
Excellent. That's music to my ears. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to also open up a question for anyone to jump in. What does success look like at the end of the period of this grant? What will you consider, your community to have fully benefited from the Build Back Better Regional Challenge by 2027?
Would you like me to go first?
Open to anyone, but since
Okay.
you came off mute, yeah, let's start with you, Ashley.
Okay. Is it okay if I go next? I just had a little moment.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course. Dale, go ahead.
I can go. So success from my perspective is that we take full advantage, or we have taken full advantage of this public-private partnership engagement model. We've created a new technology-based business opportunity that will generate new jobs for the community locally here. And for those that maybe want to take make a career change, there's an opportunity to do something different. Maybe it's higher paying opportunity to support their families. And that the coalition continues beyond the grant period. I think that'll be a key aspect to this, is that we have some really good momentum, and there's a start and end date with the grant, but then what does it become after that? And I would say, you know, success would be is that it takes a life of its own and continues to prosper beyond the grant period.
Excellent. Robert?
Yeah, I'll say for our community, literally be our ordinances and housing codes will be brought into the modern century, that our residents will now have the flexibility and freedom to take advantage of the newer types of housing, newer types of construction, and that will start to address the housing shortage, not only in our community, but that again, through this model code, that many of the cities will be able to quickly move and again, knock off one of the problems facing housing in Oregon.
Ashley, you ready, or should we jump to Heidi?
Okay. Yes. So, I think this is very, thinking of the word here, very purposeful for our community here. We've facilitated quite a few PATH trainings, which is professional accelerated training and hiring. We've facilitated workshops for the arts here, which we involve a lot of people from our community to join us, because everyone doesn't know what this factory is outside the outskirts of town. And so we invite people here in this space so they can see what we're doing here. We have several enterprises in the building. And again, with just the expansion of our company, we're able to reach out to other people looking for employment, bettering their skills. And if you leave here, you'll be leaving with more certifications than when you started, in hopes that you'll find a better job than when you came here.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Heidi, what is success going to look like at the end of this grant period for your community?
Sure. So I'd say success for the Mountain Plains Regional Native CDFI Coalition. At the end of the grant period, I think the hope is that there will be a more robust and dynamic Native CDFI industry within the Native communities in the Mountain Plains states. It is an area where there are Indian reservations with large land masses that have very little access to capital. So for example, here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, it takes a couple hours to drive from one side to the other. And within those couple of hours, we have one depository institution. So banks and other like things that are in cities and more urban areas just don't exist. So the Native CDFIs really are critical to creating that access to capital and providing it in a way that is culturally appropriate, where people feel comfortable engaging with it. And really, you know, in the end, it all comes down to job creation and creating local economies. And the Native CDFIs in Native communities really are the drivers of that.
Excellent. Thank you for that. If there are questions from folks zooming in, please feel free to put them in the chat. But I'd like to end with one question before that, and that is what can EDA and other economic development practitioners learn from this process, and what recommendations do you have for them in future programs? Can be as narrow or as specific as you like, and I will call on folks if no one wants to jump in. Robert, go ahead.
So I'll deviate a little bit and kind of come back to something I said earlier, and that is making programs simple and easy. Keep in mind that when you're talking about rural towns, when you're talking about small communities, there's not a lot of resources there. And so it starts with, first of all, making it easy to find where grants and funding is available. So oftentimes an idea is formed, we're going to fund this, and the money is spread across multiple agencies, and we've got to go look across a lot of different things to find where are the different funding. And then the next challenge is understanding how that money can be used or not used, all the different elements around it. And then lastly, putting your application together. And as I've said earlier, it's getting easier, but there's still a long ways to go to make it. in Oregon, I keep hearing from organizations like our Department of Transportation that many cities like ours won't even go after grants because they feel it's a monumental challenge to do it. And then they're afraid that even if they get the dollars, that they can't execute on it with some of the strings and things that are attached around it. So just working on making these programs easier and keeping in mind the challenges that rural towns and cities have.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I think that, the Mountain Plains Coalition serves a lot of rural communities, very rural, very remote. Some of the organizations within the coalition, may only have, a 2-person staff. So this was a unique opportunity where they all got to come together and kind of join forces and share resources and stuff like that. But it, again, like some of the federal grant opportunities just seem so overwhelming to smaller, more rural areas where they have fewer staff, fewer resources to pull from, and just working on making those programs more easily accessible. And I don't know, for the rural communities that have fewer resources is definitely would be a bonus.
Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely, echo Robert and Heidi's comments, but I'll zero in a little bit on the tactics of the execution side of the grants. I think Robert said it well, speed is important to the areas as so that they can execute and move. Things that get dragged out, people start to lose interest and they get distracted by other things. So speed will always be important. The other thing I would say is the mechanics of how the grant is administrated is another key thing that I think should continue to be assessed for its flexibility and nimbleness, because every region's grant and what they're focusing on can be very different. And so one shoe may not fit all, right? So that flexibility, I think, becomes important. I would also state that the findings this year during our grant activity in Central Florida, I found that the process has been fairly flexible and adjusting to the nuances of what we're doing in Central Florida versus, say, another region. So I would encourage that to continue and continue to assess the standards by which the grants are administered.
I think that awareness has a big part to do with it as well. Some people just don't know that there's money out there that they can retrieve. So a lot of what we do is keep the entrepreneurial mindset in mind. And that's what we believe in here. We have a program that will help guide people and provide a certain amount of money to help start up your business. And that's just something that we do here, but to branch out into the area, also that awareness, just let people know that there is money out there and the steps to try and get it.
Excellent. Thank you all. That's good advice for us to take back as well. Well, I think that wraps up our panel. So I want to give a big thank you again to the 4 of you who joined, and I will turn it back over to Jess or Pearl.